In this lesson, we're going to be animating our half hoop. Okay, so I have my half hoop comp open, and that one is just located there inside of the pieces comps. And what I want to do is go ahead and start animating this to be used later on. Now, the reason why we're animating these little pieces separately is because it's going to save us a lot of time later on, which you'll see once we get past animating these 5 little pieces and we begin animating our actual letters. So the first thing that I want to do is change this half hoop to a shape layer. So to do that, you'll want to right-click your layer and choose Create Shapes from Vector Layer. And that's going to turn this into a shape layer and turn off the visibility for your original. Now, we don't even really need the original anymore, so you can select it and delete it. And then what I want to do is add an effect to this. So that is a very special type of effect that you can only add to shape layers, and it's over here in this little add area. So click the add flyout menu and you're going to choose trim paths. Okay, now trim paths is a really great little effect that you can use for anything basically, but I love it the most for layers that are vector, that have been converted to shape layers that are paths like this. So it's not a filled path, it's just kind of a stroked path. And you can tell that that's what it is because the line is in the middle of that color. So if you come down here and you have trim paths toggled down, you can see that the end property is at 100%. And then I can left click and drag that value to make that line appear and disappear. So we're going to be able to do some really awesome stuff with this. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and go forward a few frames to the end of how long I want this to take. And let's just say it takes about 10 frames. So I'll hold shift and hit page down. And I'll go ahead and key that end property by hitting the stopwatch. Then we'll go back to the beginning and turn that end down to 0. So now, over time, it's going to stroke that into place. Now, one of the other things that I want to do is have this rotating during this time. So I'll select the layer, hold shift, and hit the R key to bring up the rotation property. There it is. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead again, set a rotation key on the same place that we set our second keyframe. And then here at the beginning, I'm going to change this to, let's just turn it all the way upside down. That's going to be -180. So over time, it's going to turn on and rotate at the same time. Awesome. Now, later on, we're going to be really messing around with the graph editor and how fast we want these things to move for our letters. But I want to go ahead and show you that process now for these little pieces as well. So on this second keyframe, instead of just having this kind of boom, there it is, just, you know, quick and easy linear keys, I want to take the time to really make this count and look better. So I'm going to come up here with that second keyframe selected, go into my graph editor, and instead of just letting this be a plain linear key, with that second key selected, I'm going to come over here and choose Easy Ease In. And what that does is it gives me a handle that I can now use to pull out and flatten this line out a little bit at the end. So if I hold shift, it can snap that into place, so I'm not pulling it up or down, causing any kind of problems. And now it's going to draw on much more quickly at the beginning and then more slowly at the end. So you can see how the relationship of this graph starts out looking, you know, it's at 0, and then we go up until we make it kind of up here to the top. Now, right now we are looking at the speed graph for properties like position, anchor point, things that have different dimensions. But because this only has one value, it would be considered the value graph, but it looks like the speed graph because it's just one dimension and it's a white line. So if you're familiar with the graph editor, don't be confused. This is still considered the value graph for, you might be able to see it. It might be going off the recording area just a bit. It's going down this time. So we are looking at the value graph, but it would look like the speed graph for other properties. Okay, now I want to do the same thing for my rotation. So if I select the rotation property, select that last key, give it an easy ease in, I'm going to do the same thing where I just hold shift and pull that handle back. Now let's take a look at what happens. I'm just going to scrub a little bit past this to about 1 second, hit the N key to bring my work area into my current time indicator, and then hit the 0 key on my number pad to watch that preview. So it's going to start out pretty abruptly and then really slow in nice and easy to our final animation. Perfect. Okay, so that is pretty much it for our half hoop. We're going to be continuing to use these techniques to animate our other pieces here, and then we'll go through a few letters later on. So let's continue on to our next lesson where we'll be animating our circle. So stick around and we'll do that in the next lesson.